Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining me today on Deborah Kobylt Live. In studio with me today, I'm very excited to have you, Yawar Charlie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. You're a man of many talents. We're going to start with your latest. First of all, you are a celebrity and well-known realtor. You work for Compass Realty here in Los Angeles.
In Beverly Hills. I'm part of the Aaron Kerman Group, and we are the top sales team in California and ranked number 10 in the country, according to the Wall Street Journal.
That's hard to do.
It is hard to do, and it's really amazing, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. Our sales last year were almost $530 million. So.
That's not easy because, sometimes I'm at home and I hear a little knock on the door and it's a realtor and I think, how are they ever going to make money if they're just, I know that's what you do when you start out, but
right.
To go from the beginnings to where you are now, that's an achievement. That's pretty incredible. It is,
and I have to say, shout out to those who door knock because I cannot do that.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Doesn't matter how many cocktails I have had, how much liquid courage, no. Can't knock on someone's door, but I appreciate those who can do it.
Yeah, we're going to get into that too, like how you started and all that.
Yeah.
But your latest venture, you are part of a show that's going to be airing on the CNBC Network. I love CNBC, actually, called Listing Impossible.
Yes.
Tell me about Listing Impossible. What a great name, Listing Impossible. Tell me about that.
It really is, and it's, again, such an honor to be on CNBC. It's one of their first real estate shows. And the premise is that we go into homes that are challenging, that haven't sold, that have some issue about them that prevent them from really working well on the market, be it price, be it staging, be it a construction matter, be it a seller. And each house has a story. And so during the episode, we get to figure out what that is, and we come in, and since we're experts in the luxury market, we come in and we retool, rebrand, and repackage, and then relaunch the property in hopes to sell it.
Right, and these are luxury homes, right?
They're luxury homes, but they run the gamut. You really get a variety. You see a lot of sort of everyday Los Angeles homes, and then the super mega mansions
They're
that
always
we're
fun
known
to
for.
look at.
They are.
I don't care where you live. I don't even care if you live next door to one of those.
Right.
They are fun to look at. It's like, oh,
they are. We joke around and we call it real estate porn because it's homes that you get into and take a look at, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And so our show deals with that. And what's great about it is that because CNBC is a business network, they really get the brass tacks of how homes are sold and how things work. And so the viewer gets a bird's eye view of how the business really works. And so it's a very authentic show. Mm-hmm. And how the story unravels is very organic. And it's not something that's set up. And so we're always on our toes, and it's a real life experience. And it's a reason that they call it Listing Impossible. It's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. But we always go in and do our best and try to be our authentic selves.
I think this show is going to do great on CNBC because you're right. They have nothing like it. But it's told through a business perspective.
Correct.
And what I love about this, may I bring it up? You are the first South Asian man, Pakistani man, gay man, to be hosting a show on CNBC. And what I said to you on the phone, we did a little pre-interview, was, wow, how far we've come, right?
Right.
I have many friends in the world of business, and they are still hiding back because they're like, no, I can't. And look at this. You're going to really change the way, you're going to change the dialogue of things. I think it's great.
I hope so. And what's nice about it is, and for me, there really wasn't a choice. You put my name into a Google search, and the first thing that will come up is Yawar Charlie gets married on Grammy Awards. And so I was married on the Grammy Awards 5 years ago, and that is public record. It's out there. And so I felt that rather than not include that in my story, it was something really to be celebrated because I want to show that diversity, minorities can succeed in business, be their authentic self. As long as they're good at what they do, that's all that should matter.
What's important is when a network like CNBC gets behind that message, that says a lot.
I know, and they've been wonderful. They've really been great and truly supportive, and definitely an ally in that respect. And in our show, that's not something that's necessarily front and center.
Yeah, no. Why should it be? It's just that, hey, this is what it is. That's the way it goes.
Exactly.
And that's how it should be. It's like with women's rights or women's issues. Just the way it is.
Right. It's about visibility. It's about seeing people who look like you, talk like you, dress like you, and can relate. And, something I try to do, and we'll see if it makes it in the show. I haven't seen any of the episodes, but for some of our launches and kind of grand openings, I actually do wear Pakistani clothes.
I love that. I love that. I love authentic clothes. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. It's just always important to me, growing up when you have an unusual name like Yawar, and you're culturally speaking, we dress a little bit differently. And, I come from a religious family. And so I would get made fun of because I had an unusual name. And it wasn't until much later in life where I really started to build my self-confidence that I realized, you know what, I have an unusual name. Diversity is all over my face. So instead of trying to fit in, I really felt like I just needed to be who I was. And simply by being who I was and accepting my name and correcting people when they mistake it. And that's why I came up with a rhyme, Yawar like shower, power, tower. So people could easily do it.
Yeah,
and so,
easy to remember.
Right, and that's really what I try to do.
Were you accepted by family? Now you have 7 brothers and sisters. Wow. And of course your parents. Was it accepted? Because I know sometimes the culture can be a little, a little questionable when it comes to homosexuality.
Well, I'll tell you this. My grandparents had 12 kids, and like I said, I'm one of 8. But I'm everybody's favorite, Deb, so they have to accept me. They have no choice.
I'll bet they are. I bet you are. I can see that. I can see that. Smart, adorable, all of it. You got the whole package going, okay?
Well, it's funny. I always feel very fortunate because I don't have, a horrible coming out story. I don't have, and I feel very blessed about that. And because that's the case, I feel that I can be an advocate for people, and I should be, and it's my responsibility. And for me, it was a natural progression, and then sort of the Grammys happened.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I remember that. That was such a moving moment. I kept replaying it because I was just honored to see this worldwide, this beautiful ceremony with different various people from everywhere getting married. So tell me a little bit about that moment. I cannot even imagine.
It was truly amazing. My husband Jason and I were asked to be on the show, and so I always joke. At first we said no because we didn't want to be part of some sort of reality TV kind of marriage thing, and we had a wedding that I call our friends and family wedding,
right? Which
our anniversary is actually Friday. So we had
happy anniversary to you and Jason. Much. Wow, how's it going?
Amazing so far. I get half regardless, so it's really good. But no, I'm kidding. No, it's really good. So we originally said no, and then we thought about it and we said yes, and it was the most amazing moment I could have ever imagined because it was so surreal. You walk into the Staples Center and you have Madonna 10 feet away from you stretching. You have Macklemore and Ryan Lewis just chit-chatting with everybody, and you have you're sitting there in a stadium of 17,000 people while they do tech rehearsals, and Metallica has just walked off stage, and you're like, okay, this is kind of huge. And then it happened right after marriage equality, and when we had finished, I remember the moment where we walked out onto the floor, the Staples Center, and the roar of the crowd was something like I've never, I get emotional just thinking about it. I've never heard something like that. And the way you felt like there were all of these arms just wrapping you up and giving you a hug. And the response we got after was something I could never have imagined. And I think part of it was that, again, I wore traditional South Asian clothes and Jason was in a tuxedo.
That's beautiful.
And there's a photo of us that ended up being on the cover of everything, and Diane Sawyer ended her newscast with it. And because of that, it was able to start a conversation about homosexuality in countries that were predominantly Muslim. And we got so many emails and messages on social media from people in countries who said, this is not an option for me. I'm in the closet. This is illegal. I could be killed for being gay here. And by watching
they reached out. I would be afraid that,
what?
The email would
I
be
was too.
with.
And they did. And they said, this gave me hope that this might be a possibility for me. And that was never our intention. We just thought, wow, what a great opportunity that we've been offered. And it was life-changing. And so from that, I just felt like, if I do have any kind of platform for advocacy, I need to use it, and which just shows you can be your authentic self, be happy, be married, be successful in business, and you don't have to be anything other than you.
Right. And we are so fortunate to live in a country where we can do that.
Correct.
Where the envelope is being pushed and pushed every day for everyone's rights, people
Correct.
of color, women, people who are gay and trans and everything. We are equal. Mm-hmm. That's all there is to it. And hopefully around the world, eventually someday, people will see that it does work. So,
I hope so.
I hope so too. So bravo to you for being a part of that.
Thank you so much. And thanks to the people who came before us that fought for the rights. because that's not lost on me either. You know, there were a lot of people who paved the road in order for us to have that opportunity. In fact, you know, two of my best friends were the plaintiffs in the Prop 8 case that went to the Supreme Court.
Oh.
And I always joke around with my friend Paul. I said, you know, our friendship is like he's the Beyonce and I'm the Solange. You know, she did all the hard work and I just get to show up at the party. You know, and so I make that joke because it's true. Like there were pioneers and advocates before us that gave us the opportunity to have that moment. And so I feel like when I can talk about it and show people that it's okay and succeed in other fields, that hopefully it starts a conversation and gives people hope and inspires folks.
Yeah, very close to my heart. I've had people in my family who are older, some who have passed, who hid their whole lives. And how sad. But, you know, we move forward in humanity, and we just hope that as we move forward, there is change. So thank you. Talk a little bit about your background. You also are an actor. Tell us, for people who don't know, some of the shows that you've appeared in.
Sure. So I was an actor. I have a master's in fine arts. And, you know, I've done a bunch of TV shows, everything from sort of Heroes to General Hospital to NCIS, usually a terrorist or a bad guy.
I was going to say, you guys always end up being, and even I noticed it years ago, you know, you're at the movies and I'm like, why do they always have to look like that? Seriously?
I know.
What's the casting call like? You know, do you ever just get called in for like a Father Knows Best thing or no?
Not so much. Actually, I take that back. I did a Nickelodeon show once, and I think it was like Mr. Smith or something was the name of my character. And I was so excited. I took a photo of the dressing room and I sent it to Jason. He's like, why, Mr. Smith? And I said, I play a boring neighbor. You have no idea how cool that is.
That's even cooler. You would be Mr. Smith. Did you get it?
You know, I did.
You got it. Okay, you got it. Okay.
That's why I was saying, I'm like, because those are so few and far between. And General Hospital was not like that. I played Cobby, the lab, kind of the sexy lab doctor for a couple of years, and then went away and then came back as another character. But everything else primarily has been sort of like drug dealer, murderer. I always joke around. I'm like, if I can not be arrested, kill somebody, or make it alive to the end of a show, it's a win.
We got to get you cast as the president of the United States, right? Let's change this dialogue. President, I love the Mr. Smith neighbor. I think that's just perfect, right? I think that's fantastic.
Right.
So, but it's changing.
It's changing.
Once
it's
again,
changing.
But this is in your blood, right? Your dad was an actor, and your grandfather was a very, very famous actor. Tell us about that.
Correct. So my last name is Charlie, and I got that name because my grandfather was one of the pioneers of the Bollywood film industry, and so when he became famous, they called him the Charlie Chaplin of India. And so grandparents had 12 kids, and 6 boys and 6 girls, if you can imagine, 12 kids. And
I would run out the door, but whatever.
I think some of them tried. But that became the last name. And so both of my parents were actors, and it kind of was just sort of ingrained in my spirit. I have a degree in psychology, so I thought that's kind of was the path I was going to take. And one day, one of my professors said, you know, have you thought about getting a degree, like a grad degree in theater, because this is sort of what you always write about in your papers. And so I changed at the last minute. I went from a PhD in psych to a master's in fine arts and acting. And then it just kind of took off, and I started doing a lot of stage work. And when I came to LA, it was sort of a shock to the system, because what I was getting called in for and cast in was, like I said, drug dealers, terrorists, and then I wasn't working a ton. And so I had saved up, the money I had done acting, and I decided to buy a house. And so because I was interested in real estate. And from that moment, and from buying that house, it really sparked something in me where I felt like I can be creative in another field. I never thought of it that way.
That is so smart. I mean, look how all of these talents were sort of balled together. I mean, Grandpa Bartru, you've got 7 brothers and sisters, and he brought you here. You were the only one who was brought here. So they grew up there. Right. And you grew up here in the States, which is really incredible, with a grandfather who was a very well-known actor. Mm-hmm. So you had all of that pedigree, studied psychology, decided to switch, and you got your master's in theater arts or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you just look at all that together. You come here to LA to try your hand at it, buy a house, which was very smart to do with your money. And then you think, bingo. So then what? I love this.
So I found that I was really interested in the process. And when I bought my house, the person who was working with me, my realtor, was not very seasoned and didn't do the best job. And so I did a lot of research on my own. And I found that I was
I have
really,
too, every time.
really, well, you know what, we do. We can talk about that too.
Yeah.
Everyone should be an informed buyer when they're moving forward for a purchase. But I didn't know. I mean, as an artist, you don't necessarily know a lot about the business side of things. I just knew that I had this money and I wanted to do something smart with it. And so I got interested in the process, and my partner at the time said, you should really consider doing this kind of as a side job. Well, that side job within a matter of months turned into the full-time job. And by the end of that year, I was one of the top new agents at my office.
Okay, we got to stop. How did that happen? Because remember earlier we were talking about, realtors who were knocking on the door. I mean, you became a success instantly in real estate. But how? I mean, how did you get those contacts? Did they give them to you? Did you get them yourself? What?
Nothing has ever been given, let me tell you, and no one gives you anything. You have to earn it. For me, it was, I sat down and I said, what are my skill sets? I'm a communicator.
Yeah.
I'm honest.
Likable. That's important.
That's important.
Like if I were talking to you about my house, you're just easy to talk with and I could tell you, listen, that's so important in a realtor. They always send you stuff in another city. I'm like, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I said here. So
it's important. And I think because I have that degree in psychology, I'm able to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I understand, I love telling this story. I remember how excited I was when I got my first set of keys to my first home. Oh. I remember I was like, I did this. I earned this. And it was just like...
Where was it?
It was in West Hollywood.
Wow.
And I remember going, I can't believe I did this. This is huge.
Was it a home or a condo?
It was a condo. It was my first condo.
And that is exciting.
It really was. It really was. And
wow.
And so I did that, and I remember that moment. And so it's that moment that I carry with me to every single transaction. So I love, because I know how hard people work, and real estate is the biggest investment someone's going to make in their life. And it's their home, it's their personal space. And so you have to respect that, you have to acknowledge that, you have to celebrate that, and you're working to get your clients to a place of abundance. And so I think about all of those things.
I love that, how you take with you, with every client, every sale, that moment when you open the door to your first home. That is so terrific. That really separates you from so many of the others. You really care about how they're going to feel in their new place. I think that's no wonder why you got selected for this TV show. That's great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's really very true. And so what I did when I first started was I started to put it out to my network of social friends. When you are starting in a new field, real estate in particular, you have to establish yourself as someone who is an expert, someone that people can trust, someone that knows what they're talking about. So I did that with my social network, and they trusted me enough to shepherd them through this process. And I did a good job. And one friend told another friend who told another friend, and that's how it worked for me. And so I had a really wonderful first year, and I just kept building on that. And, to this day, I haven't done, crazy marketing and all of this other stuff. Because what ends up happening is
So you're not on a park bench?
I am on a car wash, but that's a different story.
A car wash is okay. I'll give you the car wash.
For 12 years, I've had that ad, and I did it because for subliminal marketing, so people would say, mainly my friends, because I did it in a community where I knew that everyone got their car washed at this place.
Oh, I love that.
And so I did this specifically so people would just randomly be sitting there and go, Yawar's a realtor now? Like, oh, I didn't know that. Wow. I should call him. And that's why I did it. And it's been very effective. And so that's how I started my business. That's how I continue my business. Smart. And, your reputation is everything you got. And so I really try to make sure that I take care of people. And they go, when they hear about like a friend who's thinking like, oh, I'm thinking about buying a place, they go, you should use my guy. He's really good.
That's fantastic. Let's go through a little bit in real estate, because Southern California real estate is so expensive. And I know many young people who are like in their early 20s, mid 20s, and they're like, I'm never going to afford anything. And in a way, they're right. I mean, how are they even going to save up the money? But what do you tell people in this housing market that it's such an expensive one? Should they go smaller? Should they go further out? Should they go to up and coming? What do you say?
The first thing I tell people in real estate
Yeah.
is that find out what your purchasing power is. Understand what the tax implications are. Like, for example, when I bought my first place, no one had ever mentioned that there was a huge tax savings to be had because I was in a certain economic bracket. My loan amount was a certain amount. And then I got this tax write-off that as an independent contractor saved me a lot of money on taxes.
Very smart.
So that's important to know. But you always have to know, what can I afford? What makes me feel comfortable? Because, a mortgage should not be something that you're worried about. It should not cause you stress.
And go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so those are the first sort of nuts and bolts things that I always tell people. And the other part is there is no better way to build wealth securely and safely and quickly like real estate. Because it's a physical piece of stuff that's not going anywhere that will, generally speaking, always appreciate, unless you buy at an inflated price, an inflated market.
I did. I bought
and something happens.
way in the high. We were moving from Beverly Hills into the Brentwood area, and I had to have this piece of land because we had to knock the house down. I had to have it, and it was in, I think, 07 or 08 when, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when I tell you, but I wanted it, I had to have it, and I'm telling you, the next month it just went, phew, I'm like, nothing I could do about it.
And you know what? None of us have a crystal ball.
No,
right?
and by the way, it comes back.
It does come back. So
even when it goes and that thing really took a nosedive, it came back and then some. That's another thing people have to realize.
They do, and you have to understand, you have to buy when it's right for you.
That's right. I mean, my kids were little. I needed to be there. It's like, what am I going to do? That was also at a time when there were like 30 and 40 offers on the table, and I'm like, get the house.
Yeah,
I don't care what you got to do. Get this. So I overpaid. But even in a situation like that, to your point, it's an investment. It
is, and like I said, it's real estate is very important. If you can get into it, and there are very accessible ways for people to buy their first home. There's certain loan programs that are out right now with good interest rates that are not predatory that you can get into as long as you can afford it. You want to sit down with a spreadsheet and put everything down. When you see things in black and white, that's a truthful moment. This is what I spend. This is what I earn. This is what I can afford.
And don't forget the property taxes. They always throw me. No matter what happens, they always seem to be going up higher, which always irritates me because yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so for your viewers, so property tax is based on 1.25% of the purchase price of the house. So when you buy a house, you'll get a escrow statement and it'll say taxes are X, right? But that's based on the old purchase price for when the seller bought the house.
That's right.
So most people don't know that you get this really pretty pink envelope about 6 to 8 weeks after the close of escrow, and it's called a supplemental tax bill. And then you open it and you're like, oh my God, I owe like hundreds or thousands of dollars more than I thought. So it's important to know that's coming too. So
yeah, but I like the fact that you clearly tell your clients this, so there's no surprises.
Absolutely, that's the other part of it. When you're buying a house and you're buying your first place, especially, it's important to work with someone who has experience. Someone, because we all have a friend, right? We all have a friend who's doing real estate, and I understand that, and I'm one of those friends. But when it comes to it, it's business also. So you have to work with someone who knows what they're doing, who makes you feel comfortable, who gives you the information.
Makes you feel comfortable and gives you information. I like that, because if you're not comfortable with people, go to the next one, even if it's your friend.
Sure.
I've been there, and I use the friend anyway. It's like, oh, not very smart. I probably left a lot of money on the table. So to your point, the do's and don'ts of buying.
Ooh, this is a good one.
What do you do? What do you not?
Well, the first thing I do, and I always tell people who say, Yawar, I'm thinking about buying a house. My first question from them is, have you talked to a mortgage broker? And the answer is usually no. They're like, well, I looked online. I think I can do this. That's all well and good. You need to sit down and talk to a mortgage broker. And they will give you very quickly what your purchasing power is.
Interesting.
And I always tell people, it's kind of like when you're thinking about buying a car, and you kind of go into a dealership randomly and you're like, this Mercedes looks good. I think I'm going to test drive that. And you're like, this is it. I have to have this. But then you go to the finance department and they say, you can't really afford this, but you can afford this great, Acura down the way. The thing is, you have to know that ahead of time, because if you do the Mercedes first and then go to something that you feel is like, I'm not as excited about, it'll taint your vision of that
That's
experience.
very smart. What are current interest rates out there? They're still straddling around for, let's say you do a 30 or 15. Not 15, I know it's different. 30-year fixed, which a lot of people do.
Well, it depends on the loan amount, but generally speaking, interest rates are really competitive. They're in the 4s. Some of them are dropping. The Fed just cut rates a little bit more today.
Oh, good.
So interest rates are definitely still at a, not a historic low, but pretty low.
Low enough.
Low enough. Very affordable. And, I encourage anyone, if they're on the fence about it, if you're spending $3,000 a month in rent and you can get a mortgage for around $3,500 a month, if you can stretch it to that.
Right, because the tax.
Exactly. Remember that a lot of that is going, is interest on a loan, and up to, I believe, $750,000 in the U.S. now that they changed the tax law.
They did.
You can write that interest off. And I'm not a CPA, so I recommend that you do talk to a CPA. But generally speaking, these are huge savings for people.
What about second homes? Because we have one and we never use it. And I'm always trying to say, we're not there. And especially in an area where you probably can't even rent it. Do you advise on second homes or not really? It's definitely an emotional purchase, right?
It is, and it's a purchase where you have to decide what your goal for the house is. So that's the first thing. With the second home, I always tell my clients, what are you doing with this home? What is it for? Is it for your retirement? Is it for an income property? Is it for you to visit on the weekends? Because a lot of times, I know clients who have bought second homes with the idea, we're going to be out there every weekend.
Right, and then a
6
year
months
later,
later they've been there once.
Believe me.
So that happens also. If you're financially in the position to afford it, that's one thing. But I think when I look at second homes and I talk to clients, I always say, well, if this is an income property, that you have to look at it with very different eyes than you do if this is another home I'm adding to my portfolio, that it's a vacation home for me, my family, and my friends.
Yeah, that's what
so you have to kind of look at them through different lenses. If it's through an income property, it has to fit certain criteria. How much money does it cost to hold every month? What is the income that I can get from rentals? Are there any rental restrictions in the town? Places like Palm Springs now have rental restrictions. If you're thinking about doing Airbnb or short-term rentals, guess what? Those laws just changed July 1st. So you need to, again, know the laws.
I think they should. I mean, I don't want to
rules.
know that, the guy next door is renting it out as a hotel. I just think I'm glad that they've imposed restrictions on most places.
They have. And, you can easily look up what the new laws are and how they apply to you.
Depending upon the area. So you're one of the top realtors in the nation. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Our team is.
Your
yes.
team, yeah, but you're part of that team.
I am.
And I've done my research. I know you're a big part of that team, so that's pretty amazing. You love what you do, huh? How many houses do you sell in a year?
Wow.
Because so much work goes into it, the photographing of it, the staging, everything.
It is. I mean, as I was I was just having this conversation yesterday with someone. I have an opportunity for a listing coming up out of the area. And it's not an area that I can easily service, so I want to co-list with someone. So I don't know how someone works, so I always tell them how I work, which is when we take the listing, we do, here's a rundown of the 5 things that we're going to do. Here's the base cost it's going to be. Are you on board for all of this? So I definitely have those conversations. And my year depends. So because I do a lot of first-time home buyers. So like I said, I love that experience of when people get their first place.
I love that about you.
So, I'm a volume boy. So where some people could do 4, 5 transactions, 6 transactions a year, but they're very high numbers, I might do 20. I might do 25. So
That's
it just
great,
depends
because your
on the
name
year.
is really out there.
It really, it is.
You
and
could do it.
I enjoy it. I'm someone who likes to stay busy. And so sometimes I have great marquee listings. Sometimes I have, everyday, listings that you talk about. So I always joke, it could be a $500,000 condo or a $5 million home. They're both the same amount of work. And they require the same dedication.
We only have a couple minutes, but listing impossible.
Yes.
How busy is that keeping you?
Well, we
must have a big team, right?
What's great is there's about, I think, like 7 or 8 of us on the show. Our Aaron Kerman Partners as a whole is huge. It's about 50 people.
Yeah.
But there's a principal cast that's on the show, and we've finished filming, a few months ago, and we're waiting to find out what our launch date is.
I'm so excited for this, you guys.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
really, really. Are you gonna have like a big party listing and party?
I'd
love
hope
to go.
so. CNBC, if you're watching, we want something huge.
No, why not? Come on.
No, we will.
In one of the homes maybe that hasn't sold
we will.
yet.
No, like I said, our team is very blessed and works really hard. So when the launch date is announced, I'm sure we'll do something pretty big.
Congratulations to all your success. Is there something up next other than, of course, Listing Impossible, or just this is where you're at?
I mean, this is where I'm at. Work is amazing. It's blessed. It's busy. If anybody wants to know more about me, you can check out my Instagram at Yawar Charlie, which is YAWARCHARLIE. Or my website, yawarcharlie.com, or Facebook.
And it's easy to instant message somebody on,
it really is.
On Instagram and on
is.
Facebook. It's such an easy way to get in touch with somebody.
It isn't. I get a lot of, what I like about Instagram is that when you go to mine, it's a balanced page. So you get to learn a little bit about me, what I like, what I'm interested in, as well as real estate. I don't hit you over the head with it. But I do get a lot of inquiries like, hey, I'm thinking about buying my first home.
Oh, I love
What do you think I
that.
should do? Or like, hey, I'm going to be in LA. My wife and I are relocating from Tucson. Any chance you could meet with us or show us a few homes? I get a lot of that, and I really love that because you get to connect with people one-on-one.
I'm going to call you myself about something. So
Please
there
do.
you go. Yeah, no, I will. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I just think you're such a smart man and very interesting.
Thank you so
much. I love
much.
that you care about your clients. So please look him up on Instagram and the website or through Compass. But also please check CNBC to see when Listing Impossible is going to be on the air. And anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being here.
Really,
it was really great talking to you.
Yeah, you too. I really appreciate it in your background too. So fascinating.
Thank you.
Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for being here for Deborah Kobylt Live. You can find our show, of course, on YouTube, Facebook, promos out there on Instagram. And if you listen to your podcast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and honestly, just about anywhere else that you get your podcast. Thank you so much for being here and tuning in to Deborah Kobylt Live. And we'll see you next time. Bye.